What many people don't realize is that essential oils can balance the hormones.
So what are essential oils? Let's go back to the basics.
So an essential oil is a volatile organic compound, and one thing people need to recognize when it comes to an essential oil, there is no nutrition in it. There is no vitamin or mineral. It's a chemical that essentially God gave to the plant to protect the plant from outside threats, whether it's bacteria, viruses, fungus, or even vectors like flies, bees, whatever that might attack the plant. And so what it includes are organic compounds, not organic as we think, meaning organic having a carbon chain included in it. Organic compounds like terpenes, alcohols, ketones, esters, and you name it. It's basically chemicals. And so
from the plant.
From the plant. Natural chemicals from the plant. God inspired the writers of the Bible long ago when he said the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. And that's exactly what this is.
That's essential oils.
Exactly. There is no oil for one specific issue. What we have found, and this is pretty fascinating, is that let's use the Ayurvedic model, Indian folk medicine, for example. There's an abundance of lemons in India. So you'll find that the Indians use lemon essential oil for virtually everything. Detoxification, internally, externally, whether or not you're going to clean the counter or whether or not you want to clean your skin. They use essential oils, lemon, for everything from nausea to halitosis to diabetes, cancer. Well, when you go to Australia, they're using melaleuca and tea tree and eucalyptus. When you go to Oregon and Washington, they're using peppermint for everything. So it's important to realize that these oils, a lot of them do the same things. So when I report on research, it's limited because we've only done a limited amount of research, but as far as I know, there is no essential oil that does not have a cancer effect. I just recently read a report of over 130 research articles regarding essential oils. And what the researchers came about was what essential oils do is they actually prevent angiogenesis, which is the growth of veins and arteries. It stops metastatic growth. It actually prevents DNA repair, that's pretty key. That's really key because there was one study that compared sandalwood and frankincense, and it found that frankincense, again, triggered that apoptotic effect where the cancer cell died, but sandalwood killed cancer another way, went around the back end, in a sense, and flanked it by triggering the actual DNA to not being able to repair itself, so the cancer just died that way too.
Frankincense oil, if you look at the research today, it is probably the most powerful essential oil, if not the most powerful supplement, period, when it comes to natural cancer treatment, in my opinion.
What's in frankincense that makes it so good?
You know, frankincense is really high in a compound called boswellia or boswellic acid. And it's highly anti-inflammatory. It's also a very powerful antioxidant. And there are studies, actually there's a study that came out of the UK pretty recently showing that frankincense oil is effective at shrinking tumors, is effective against ovarian cancer, colon cancer, and breast cancer. And so that boswellia and frankincense, very, very powerful compound at fighting and treating cancer. And one of the most incredible things about frankincense is that, you know, the essential oils themselves are very, very small molecular compounds, and most everybody knows this in cancer treatment that chemotherapy is not effective at treating any sort of cancer of the brain because it can't pass through the blood-brain barrier, versus frankincense oil, those compounds are so small they can actually pass through the blood-brain barrier and start to reduce that neural inflammation. And so I'll tell you an incredible story. I was speaking recently and had somebody come up to me at the end after talking about essential oils, and she said, I can attest to what you're talking about with frankincense oil. She said, my husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor 6 years ago and was given 3 months to live. We got turned on to frankincense oil, started using it every single day. We diffused it in the home. We rubbed it on the roof of his mouth. She says it's been 6 years and he's still alive, and we really believe it's because of this use of frankincense oil. But yeah, you look in the medical studies, it's effective against Alzheimer's. It's effective against any sort of brain inflammation. And again, 4 separate studies showing that it's effective at treating cancer.
Allison Huish was diagnosed with brain cancer at the tender age of 13. And she used frankincense oil to treat it. Here's her amazing story.
I walked out of the waiting room about an hour later to see my mom, who had just hung up the phone with tears in her eyes. And she told me, she said, Allison, you have a brainstem tumor. And I didn't know quite what that meant. You know, I was 13 years old. I just started junior high school a couple weeks prior. But I knew at that moment that my life would be different from there on out. So we immediately went to go see my doctor, to my pediatric neurologist, and he showed my parents what the tumor was. Basically, it was a brainstem tumor, pilocytic astrocytoma is what it was, about the size of an egg, and it rested on my brainstem. So that next day, I was scheduled for emergency surgery, and they were able to get rid of about half my tumor. It was very interesting. My doctor told me, eat all the calories you can. If you'll eat pizza, if you'll eat ice cream, because I was very skinny, he's like, just get calories in you, whatever you'll take. But in our research, we learned how nutrition was so important. I needed to give my body good calories to help support good, healthy weight gain, support the cells so I would function better. And then we started doing research on what to do. And of course, many people were pushing us to go see our radiologist and go that direction. My mom and I, we did go meet with our radiologist. And I still to this day remember sitting in that room. The feelings that I felt in there. It was very cold. It was very cold. It was not what I wanted to do. And I actually left that appointment and I grabbed my mom's hand and I told my Mom, this isn't this process for me. And so she said she had also felt the same way. But we left that radiologist appointment knowing we need something else. And that's where we were really drawn towards essential oils. They kept coming across in a lot of our research. We noticed how essential oils did incredible things. There's medical studies out there showing what essential oils can do. And in particular with essential oils, we were really drawn towards frankincense essential oil. I love frankincense oil. It's a very powerful oil. I think there's a reason why it's called liquid gold, or why it's one of the oils that the Christ child was given. It's a very, very precious oil.
So in the Bible, the wise men that gave baby Jesus the frankincense and the myrrh, you know, maybe they weren't giving him just, you know, precious gifts, they were giving him medicine.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When you hear the story of the three wise men bringing the infant Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh, I remember years and years ago not really knowing. I mean, everyone knows what gold is. Most people don't realize what frankincense and myrrh are, but those were the two main sources of medicine during that day. And frankincense actually at the birth of Jesus would have been used because you look at children right after they're born, oftentimes there's bruising, and sometimes it's a dramatic experience, and so they would have actually rubbed frankincense oil on a child, which actually helps bring down that inflammation and swelling. Also, it's great for supporting and protecting the immune system. So if he was exposed to different types of pathogens at that time, frankincense oil really protects the body. And so absolutely, Ty, I mean, frankincense oil was used as, it was more than just a sweet smelling fragrance. It was the biblically based medicine. Frankincense was used along with something called the holy anointing oil, which was actually had myrrh essential oil. So a lot of people, when they hear frankincense, also start thinking about myrrh. And myrrh is referenced over 160 times in the Bible. Myrrh was also, actually there's a study in the Journal of Food and Chemistry and Toxicology recently that found that myrrh, another essential oil that's referenced in the Bible, is also effective at treating cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because that was my next question. What about myrrh? Because you had the frankincense and the myrrh.
Right.
So both were medicines.
Yeah.
Both were sweet-smelling fragrances. And here's something interesting that Dr. Sunil Pai told us last year.
From what we're looking at historically, the gold may be referenced as turmeric. Turmeric, or curcumin, specifically the part of the turmeric, but turmeric was sold and cost more than gold at the time. This is during the spice trade, or the trade route.
Sure.
And it was always nicknamed the golden spice.
You could absolutely see that in that area in the Middle East.
Sure.
And turmeric today in cancer treatment. Talk about a powerful compound, frankincense, myrrh, and turmeric.
You got a triple play there.
Oh yeah. So, but you look at something like myrrh, and it's powerful because it really works on the hypothalamus in the liver.
Okay. And
so it reduces liver inflammation and also balances hormones. And what happens a lot of times today, a lot of these cancers are estrogen-based cancers. Okay. And so what myrrh can do is it really supports the body, very similar, if people have heard of indole 3-carbinol or the benefits of cruciferous vegetables.
Broccoli. right?
It works in a very similar but an even more potent way to where it really helps clear the body of excess estrogen or xenoestrogens that are found in things like soy and plastics and parabens today, and really helps detoxify the liver and also boost a very important antioxidant called glutathione, which supports detoxification.
Wow.
So that's the way that myrrh essential oil actually helps in fighting cancer.
Okay.
One of the things that I've had my patients do, including my mom over time, is start creating an at-home frankincense and myrrh body butter and body lotion. And so basically she takes 10 drops of frankincense, 10 drops of myrrh, along with some coconut oil and shea butter, and makes her own at-home body lotion, rubs her entire body with that. And really those oils, the great thing about essential oils is those they've been used as aromatherapy. So those small compounds coming off the body are protecting the body. They're fighting cancer. They're doing some incredible things there, even topically. So I'll have my patients, or as I mentioned, my mom, take those essential oils and especially put it around that area of the neck. When you put on the neck and the back of the head, you're constantly also breathing in those beneficial compounds.
So you're not only absorbing it through your skin, you're breathing it in as well.
Absolutely, and that's a good point. Your skin is your body's largest organ, and this is why, this is the amazing thing about essential oils. We've talked about frankincense and myrrh. Other essential oils as well, like lavender and sandalwood, are so incredible at fighting cancer. But so many of these products people are using today, the body lotions, makeups, moisturizers, shampoos, conditioners, they are loaded with carcinogens. They're loaded with parabens and phthalates and sodium lauryl sulfate and all of these different chemicals that cause cancer, versus if people make their own at-home personal care products with essential oils, rather than causing cancer, they're fighting cancer.
So I use a lot of oils. I use a lot of frankincense oil. I also use clove oil.
How did you take it? Did you ingest it, or did you rub it on your skin?
Yeah.
Or did you do the aromatherapy? How did you do that?
It was really interesting how we did it. So I did do it back here where my scar is, but I don't know how effective that was because you do have a very thick skull. But one way that I did, and this was probably the way that was most consistent, is I always put a drop of frankincense oil on my tongue and raise the tongue to the roof of my mouth. And I did that probably about every 2 hours because I figured, hey, that's probably the closest way I get to my brain stem without interfering with bones or things like that.
And a lot of blood vessels there too to absorb. Right.
A lot of blood vessels, so just a lot internal. And what happened was actually quite incredible. So I started to gain health pretty quickly. Like I said, I started junior high school and then I was diagnosed 3 weeks later. So I came home and started to regain health after my surgery. I was able to start school again with my peers the next semester. And that was pretty incredible.
That's quick for a brain tumor.
You know what? It was interesting. I was only in the hospital for about a week and a half. Most people are in there for about 6 weeks. But once I had my tumor, we started on good nutrition, we started on oils, and I just had an amazing recovery. And that took about 3 years.
Okay.
It took about 3 years. I would go see him. But every time I'd go see him, it just slowly was improving. It wasn't dramatic overnight. It was a slow, gradual process. But it took about 3 years. And I remember the point where I went to go see my neurologist, and he told me, you have no more tumor.
Really?
It's completely disintegrated.
Wow. What did you feel like at that point?
You know what? Words can't describe. It was just like such an emotional relief. I had been praying and I wanted my tumor to go away. And I was like, I need another chance at life. And so when those words were said, it was invigorating. It was like I had a new life again.
Right.
I wanted to go to college. I wanted to become a registered dietitian. I wanted to tell people my story. And when I was told those words, it was like, this happened.
And that was at the age of 16 then?
That was about, the age of 16,
Okay.
17 is when that happened.
Okay.
So ever since then, my health has just been improving.
Wow, what an inspiring story from Allison, how she healed her brain cancer with essential oils. Another inspiring story is from Dr. Josh Axe, who actually healed his own mother's cancer using essential oils.
My mom's actually battled cancer twice, and the first time a little over 20 years ago. And it actually came to a shock as our family. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer at 42. And growing up, my mom was my gym teacher at school. She was a swim instructor. So always really fit, active, and healthy. but yet diagnosed with cancer. And my family lived in what I call the medical model at the time. And we were always taking drugs. My mom was always taking some sort of medication, but she went and had a mastectomy. She went through rounds and rounds and rounds of chemotherapy. And Ty, I can still remember this day, seeing my mom's hair fall out. I remember looking at her after the chemo treatments and thinking she had aged 20 years in 2 weeks, and just saying to myself, I never want to see anyone have to go through that again. And that's really what drove me into being a physician, is seeing how sick she was. And so she was diagnosed as being cancer-free and healthy, but really for the next 10 years after she went through chemotherapy, she was really sicker than ever. She spent half of her days in bed, even after, I remember she'd get home from work at 3:30 and sleep till 6 every night. She struggled with depression, she struggled with chronic fatigue, anxiety issues, and leaky gut, digestive issues, just sick all the time. And 10 years later, I was actually working as a nutritionist in Orlando and finishing up my doctorate, and she called and said, "Hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer again. What do I do?" And I flew home from Florida to Ohio, and we sat down and prayed together, and I just said, "Mom, I think we need to take care of you all naturally." And so we started an all-natural treatment program, and she started juicing vegetables every single day. We had her start doing antioxidant-rich foods, loads of probiotics, and using things like essential oils, in helping her body heal. We followed this treatment protocol for about 4 months, went back to the oncologist, and their first recommendation was surgery and radiation immediately. And we followed it for 4 months. After 4 months, went back to the oncologist, got a CT scan, called us 2 days later. He said, "This is incredible. We don't see this." He said, "But the tumors have shrunk more than half."
Wow.
He said, "I keep doing
whatever you're doing, it's working, right?"
Yeah, he said, "Come back in 9 months." We went back 9 months later, and complete remission. And today my mom is in the best shape of her life. In fact, her and my dad just retired from Ohio down to Florida. And she water skis every day. She's ran 3 5Ks with me in the past few years and gotten second, third in her age group.
Wow.
And she says she actually feels better now in her 60s than she did when she was in her 30s. And so she actually now teaches people how to use essential oils and make healing smoothies and juicing vegetables and how to ferment their own food. And so she just is a walking testimony of really what it takes to beat and fight cancer naturally.
Right. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot.
Cool.